Here we go. Okay, my name is Brandon Starcevic. I'm from the Northwest Territories, and I live in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I'm here because everybody thinks since I joined the military, this is where I was posted. I'm here because I had to get away from something in my life before this. I'll start from the beginning. In about grade 11, I was going to school, and I had quit working so I can focus on my grades, and which didn't really help. That's besides the fact. My little brother, though, he had quit school at a year or so before that. It just didn't agree with him, and he was working at a chicken barn, so every day his friend would come and pick him up in the morning and drop him off at night, and he would be covered with dirt, poop, and stuff like that. One day towards the end of grade 11, he came home and he said, "Mom, I've been offered a job, another job, but at the same place, and that's a property manager of the chicken barn. So they want me to live out there." And I said I wouldn't move there unless, you and Brandon got to move there too. He doesn't want to live there all by himself. The chicken barn is about 8 miles out of town in the middle of nowhere in the Northwest Territories, so it's in the middle of nowhere. And it's creepy. I'm just a little foreshadowing. My mom said, "Well, how many bedrooms and how big is the house?" And he said, "Well, it's a fair sized house, 3 bedrooms and technically 4. But the thing is, it's really grimy and dirty, and the old property manager, he just skipped town. He left everything, and but the good thing is, though, the chicken barn owner said that they would pay for brand new appliances, paint, supplies, and they would get the floors redone and everything professionally. So all we'd have to do was paint the walls and clean the place up, and that's pretty much it. Take care of the property, make sure nobody comes on, cut the grass, and that's it." And she said, "Well, let's go look." So we drove out of town, and in between my town, Hay River, Northwest Territories, and their little kind of I want to say sub-city, but really it's a sub-town, Enterprise. It's about 13 kilometers out. And so this was just a little road, a little turn off in the middle of nowhere, and I had been by there many times to go out camping, picnicking to the waterfalls, or just leaving the Northwest Territories to go on vacation. And I've never noticed it before. It was a little road just off the side of the highway, and it had a little wooden sign, and it said 62 Miron. That's it. So we turn into 62 Miron, and you drive down, and you see tall white birch trees all the way down, and it's a narrow road. And you drive down, and it looks like it goes nowhere. And then all of a sudden, you get to the end, and there's a left. And you turn left, and there you go. There's a large opening, and on the left was what would be a very large but long lawn. And all the way around the lawn was hedges that were 15 feet high. And they were unkempt. And in the middle of the lawn, there was saplings that were 10 years old, growing out of the middle of the lawn everywhere. And but you drive on a dirt road, and on the right side, just a little bit in, there's a house there, and it looks fairly new, and it's backwards, so because when the house was originally built, it was facing down a hill towards the river, and the river it was far away, but the thing was, in between the river and the house was all the fields, and but now the trees on the hill were as high as the house, so you looked at trees when you were looking out the front. So the back of the house was the front, and the back of the house had a little deck, and it was, if 9 inches high, and just a wide platform. So if you looked going just past the house, there was a road that went right, and it went down, all the way down to the bottom of the hill, and there was a large field that opened up, and there was a huge chicken barn, and the chicken barn was compiled of multiple chicken barns. So there was an original chicken barn. If you walk into it, it was decrepit, and it was just creepy. It was dark all the time, no lights in it, and if you walked through it, because you had to walk through to get to the upstairs chicken barns, the two newest ones, and all you could see, though, halfway through, it was a white line right down the middle at the end, and there was a set of doors that were used for loading, and once in a while you'd walk by and you could swear that all of a sudden the white line would disappear as if something walked by. It's just your mind playing tricks, obviously. But yes, very large, has 4 sections to it, 2 new parts. One is the egg packing part, and there's a back barn, and then the creepy one. This used to be the field of whoever owned the place. The property was called Delany's estate. Apparently, an old guy named Arthur Delany used to own the place. A little bit more of a farmer, a rich farmer, so that's how you get something to be called an estate, I guess. So the house was, as soon as you walked in the door, there was a landing, and directly ahead of you was a couple stairs going up, and just to your right was a couple stairs going down. And the house, when we got there, was just disgusting. Just grime and filth all over the walls. There was cat shit, cat litter, rat shit, rat pellets, poison, and the grease inside of the filter of the fan above the stove, the yellow stove, the yellow fridge, everywhere was just disgusting. The carpet was thick, laden with dirt, and just embedded into it. But we ended up getting the place pretty tidy. I'll describe the layout of the house. As soon as you walk in, you go upstairs. If you look directly across from the stairs, there's a room. It's not the biggest room, but it's a room. And right next to that, on the right side, would be the master bedroom. It was the corner of the house. And across from that would be the bathroom, and at the end of that hall, which is a very short hall, was a pantry, a closet. And the large room, the master bedroom, was, my little brother said my mom can have it, because he really wanted her to stay there, and he wanted to live there. And he would take the bedroom right next to it. And then if you go left, instead of going right, you would find the kitchen, and a half wall past that would be the dining room, and then to your right would be the living room, which also had the front of the house window and the front door, but there was no porch or balcony or anything. It was just, the door was shut and locked. The dining room had that 80s paneling, that false wood look, and we had just painted over that. The linoleum, say that word 3 times fast, was replaced. The carpet was all replaced. It all professionally done. After we cleaned out the entire house and got rid of everything and all the appliances removed out, we painted it, and then they carpeted it, and it looked brand new. The whole house looked brand new from the outside, and but it wasn't until you went downstairs and you realized how old the house was. So if you were on the landing and you went down the stairs, directly across from down the stairs was a wood shop. What I assume was a wood shop, because you walk in and there's this narrow bench, wooden bench, and it was all warped and offside. It was a very narrow room, and but if you went right from the stairs, you would see two giant plastic jugs full of water. Jugs, tanks, and that's your water. You had to get a truck to come out and fill them up once or every 2 weeks. That wasn't terribly expensive. Then you had your water heater and your washer and dryer, and then to your left would have been, right behind you from the stairs, is that little cubby hole under the stairs where you put your Christmas decorations and all that stuff, Halloween costumes. And right next to that, to your left, would be the first room. It was, you open it up and the carpet was still perfect. The walls were white and had like a little children's wallpapering, just a strip of it, so you just pull it right off. There was a little chalkboard, like an old chalkboard, and a little kid's picnic table, and it was nice. That was to be my room. It was wonderful. I chose that room when we first saw the place, but by the time we'd just about finished cleaning and stuff, it was summertime by that time, and coming on to my grad year, and I was going to be spending a lot of extra time at home because I was going to be studying, and it all worked out really well. No distractions. Yeah. And then my brother, the oldest one, moved to the Northwest Territories. He wanted to find work up here, so he stayed. And him being the oldest and me being the second youngest and smaller than him, he got to pick that room. What was that to do? Beat up my big old brother? No, wouldn't happen. So beyond that room, if you keep walking down to the end of the hallway stops, but if you turn right, there would have been a door there, but there was a basement pole on one side of the opening, so you couldn't put a door in. You walk in and you look left. There is just a wall, and it's all wavy though, from time and humidity, and that wall is connected to another wall that was all wavy, and that wall was connected to a wall that had a little tiny door, a creepy tiny little door nailed shut. And I'll tell you more about that after. If you turn right when you go in the room, there's a little propane furnace, small one, and right next to that is a 6 by 6 by 6 foot cast iron, turn of the century wood stove, giant wood furnace, and had the big spring handle, and you slam that door shut, and yeah, it's like something out of a horror movie. And in between, especially in between the furnaces and the walls and the furnaces, you can go all the way to the back, and there's just a space behind them, and light never went there. The floors were wooden, like wooden planks, old, worn wooden planks, with some with holes in it. So that was going to be my room. Yippee! So I went and I grabbed the old carpet that was torn out of the living room. Perfect size, because that was where what was right above me. I steam cleaned the carpet and I trimmed it to fit. I put my bed in the left side against the wavy walls because they were less creepy than furnaces and little tiny nailed shut doors. There was a big steel rack I had found that had shelves from a old store, and I put that in front, and that was my dresser, and I put that in front of the little door in case anything tried to get through it. There was a little light in the middle of the room. Clink! You had to pull the string. Creepy. I wish there was a better way, but I had to reach up, clink, and jump back into bed. Good story. So we had the place all set up. Grade 12 had started, and I had to jump on the bus and catch the bus out because it passed our place before I went to the next town to drop the kids off in Enterprise. So if I caught the bus, I can get home. If I didn't catch the bus, I would have to look for a ride. So after so many times and so many friends, you feel like you're using them, and that nobody's going to drive every single day just for you. And I didn't have a car. So I started taking the bus home. It was just easier that way. I had time to study. I had time to do whatever I wanted to do out there. But then I got a bit squirrely. Nothing to do out there, really. Watch TV. Do your homework. So one lunch, I went to the town library. A small town, so like 2,000 people at most. I walk in and I say, "Hi, Miss Barnes," and she's like, "Oh, hi, Brandon." She knows who I am, and she's always known who I was. And I said, I kind of want to read. And she goes, "Oh my, I've been waiting to hear that your whole life." Yeah, it's really, I've known her since I was just a little kid. And she knew I didn't read. And I said, "But I don't really want to read." Does that make sense? It's too hard. I've tried it. And she said, "Oh, 1 second." She runs around the corner, comes back. She got a stack of CDs. It was Harry Potter 2. Or it was Harry Potter 1, but I said I had already watched the movie and I couldn't. So she ran back and got Harry Potter 2. And it was on audio and it wasn't out on DVD. It wasn't, I didn't even know it was going to be a second. I didn't even know it was a book. So I brought those out to Delany's estate. I went down to my room with a ghetto blaster and I put the CDs in and I listened. I just sat there and I laid on my bed and listened. Across from the door, I put a full-length mirror. And for the door, since I couldn't put an actual door, I put a wolf fleece blanket. Just hung it there. And one day I was listening to Harry Potter, and I saw something in the mirror. So I thought, as soon as somebody walks down the hallway with a blanket, it billows out from the air draft. But I sat up and I looked at the blanket and it was completely still, and I leaned over and I looked out the blanket and there was nobody there. And I looked over the mirror and I was just like, I remembered I either saw it was a woman in a white dress or a man in a white robe walk by the mirror. So I got all creeped out and I went upstairs and I told my brother and mom and oh yeah, he's smoking weed or something, whatever, just mine's playing tricks on you. It's hard to tell. It's the first time I've told it by myself, and I'm having a bit of a hard time. Yeah. Okay. So instances happen. A little here, a little noise, a little there. One time we were all watching a movie in the living room, and my mom wanted to watch what we were watching because we had satellite in the living room, and we could have all the rooms set up 1, 2, 3 with all the satellite, but we'd all have to watch the same thing because we didn't have the luxuries of a splitter. Just a manual splitter. We all had to watch the same thing. My mom saw she asked what we were watching, we told her, and she said, "I want to watch it," and it was winter time by this time, so I said, "Mom," she goes, "Brandon, can you go on the roof and bring my cable over to the splitter?" "Yeah, sure, no problem, Mom. Just hold the flashlight and the ladder for me." So we walk out in the snow, and I grab we have the big tall ladder already there. And, because we were supposed to paint the outside, but I never did. So she holds the ladder for me, shines the light up at my ass, and, I climb up the ladder, I go on the roof, and I have, I just untwist hers from the antenna. You get like 13 channels out there with an antenna. and I start pulling it through the snow, and then I get to the east trough, and it's stuck, and it's really stuck. It's frozen in the east trough, and I tell my mom, I say, I need a hammer. Can she go get me one? And she's like, okay. So you hear her crunching, and she takes off. Around the house, around the front of the house, there's a good 7 feet of space where there's in between the house and the trees. There's a perfectly cut space, and the light in the living room window and my mom's window, because my little brother's room nobody was in there, so the light was off. That would light up the trees, and the light only went so far, so you can only see just the trees and the darkness. So if you were on the top of the house where I was, you could see the trees, and so it was enough light for me to. Sorry, I'm getting creeped out already. I was sitting up there on top of the house, and all of a sudden I heard a crunching at the bottom of the hill, in the snow. There's something, animal. Well, it's coming up the hill, and it's running, and it's starting to break branches, and it's not being quiet. It's running now. It's crunching and pushing. You can hear the branches breaking and the trees shaking, and it's coming closer and closer and closer. And I'm thinking I gotta yell at my mom if I hear her, and it's coming, and all of a sudden it's almost right there, and I'm looking down into the trees, and I'm looking, and I'm waiting for it, and all of a sudden it stops. Just out of my sight. I can't see it, but I know it's right there. I can hear it. It's so close. And then it starts at the bottom of the hill again. Something's crunching through the snow. Something's breaking the branches, and it's coming up the hill, and it's coming up the hill, and it's coming closer and closer, and my heart's racing, and I'm looking for this thing, and I'm waiting for it, and I'm starting to freak out. How am I supposed to get down? And then there's running, and it's coming, and all of a sudden it gets right there, and it's right there, and I'm waiting, and it stops. And it starts at the bottom of the hill again, and all of a sudden this hammer flies up beside me, and then I grab the hammer, I say, Mom, there's something in the bushes, and I smash the ice, and I throw that cable, and I just let it go, and it goes down, and I slide down the ladder, and I go inside, and I freaked out, and I tell my mom and my brothers about it, and my mom said that her and my oldest brother had come home one night, and they were parking beside the house, which was near the hill, and they heard something in the bushes too, so they started parking across from the house, just straight across from the house, backed up against the hedges. And, yes, there's wolves. There's one person for every 4 wolves in the Northwest Territories, and 7 bears, or the other way around. Anyways, there's a lot of animals out there that can eat you and kill you. It's scary. But that was just extra creepy because of how it came up the hill. There was a very creepy time. This is where my family gets involved. We were in the midst of a blizzard. Blizzards are pretty normal up there. They happen several times in the wintertime in the Northwest Territories, and they're long. Well, they're a few days long, and they're cold, and you don't go outside, and if you do, you're layered, and you don't go very far. We lived, especially us, we lived in the middle of nowhere, so there's no driving into town. It was just, there's too much snow, and we gotta wait for the graders. So before the blizzard, you usually know when the blizzard's coming, and we went to Video Stop, and we rented lots of movies, because you never know, right? And it's nice to watch movies when it's nice hot chocolate and popcorn and stuff. So we're in the middle of watching a scary movie. My oldest brother, had a girlfriend, and she was over, and there was my little brother, my mom, and me. And we were watching Pumpkinhead 2. Creepy, scary movie. And it was just like in the movies when all of a sudden we were sitting there, and it was coming to that moment when all of a sudden there was supposed to be, you're waiting for something to jump out, and they're trying to get the timing so that they can just catch you off guard. and all of a sudden, we hear from behind me, and I jump, and I scream. We all scream, and turn on the lights, and we all just kind of stop. And so the way it is, I was sitting on a chair by myself against the wall on the side, and in the middle of the living room, just against the front window, is a long couch, and then it had another love seat over on the other side next to my brother's room, and mine was just outside behind me. And we all turn on the lights, and somebody's got to run down to the porch, and you got to run down, turn that on, run back up, and you got to look out the windows, and there's nobody. There was no tracks. There was already snowed over. If somebody had come to where we lived in the middle of a blizzard, they would have to have driven, and no tracks, nothing, not even our own tracks that we had parked. Well, we could have left a rake out, or a tree branch could have fallen, a bird could have hit the house, anything, right? Okay. Well, we all kind of calm down a little bit, grab a drink of water, and we turn off all the lights, and play the movie again. It was not even a minute later when all of a sudden we're sitting there, and it seemed like it was still in that same lengthy part of where the music's going and the violins, and there's something about to happen. And from the front door, all we hear is, and then from the roof, and then the walls all around us, and everywhere around us, and everything's banging, the whole house is shaking, and all of a sudden, we jump up, we're all screaming, and we turn on the lights, and I don't know who even turned on the lights, and we're all screaming, and then we just stop, everything just stops, and we're all just shaking, and we're all looking at each other. Well, what could we say? We just turned on the lights, all of them. Kind of grab something to eat. Yeah, it was quite just the ambiance of the entire house was a little weird. And so we put on a comedy. Everybody's eating something now, just comfort food, make us feel better. Yeah, that was it. We looked out the windows, nothing, no tracks, nothing. So we all knew something was going on. I knew something was going on. I talked to the owner, or not the owner, the manager. He had worked there since he was a kid. I asked him, I said, what's that little door there for? And he said it was, he just said, come on. And so we walked down the hill, and we got about halfway down to the chicken barn, and all of a sudden he turns into the bushes, and there was a steel shack in the middle of the bushes, a little one. And he pulls out this big ring of keys, and he fumbles around, and he opens it up, and he goes, oh, that's weird, the light's on. I haven't been here in years. And you walk in, and it's like a mine shaft, a room, anyways. And there's one light in there, and there's a little wooden shelf, and then there literally was inside of there was like a little shaft, and it was underground, and it had the pillars and stuff, and it went all the way up the hill to that little door. It was a little bit caved in a bit. And he said what you'd do is you'd fill that room, my room, full of wood in the wintertime, or in the summertime, and then fill this room down here, and when you ran out of wood, you would go down the shaft, and then you would bring that wood back up into your room. But the door's nailed shut because Arthur Delany, the guy who owned the place, he died going through that shaft, and that's where it's caved in up there. And that's it. Oh, that's cool. It was still summertime, and I walk into the dining room, and my little brother is sitting there looking. I goes, Brandon. He's just staring out the dining room window. I said, what? He said, look out the window. I look out the kitchen window, and there was an old lady just standing there looking at the house, like old lady. And I'm like, how'd you get here? And he goes, I don't know. He's like, go talk to her. I said, no, you. I was like, oh, go talk to her. I was like, oh, okay. So I go down to the stairs, and I open the door, and I peek out, and she's still looking at the house. And excuse me, ma'am? She gets startled, and she goes, oh, well, I'm like, it's private property, and I look, and I notice there's a car there, and I said, okay, she drove here, she's not just a spirit. And she's like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to intrude or anything. I used to live here. When I was a little girl, I grew up, the very early years of my life, I grew up here, and I wanted to see it again. And I said, oh, wow, that's neat. How old were you when you moved away? And she said, I was about 5 or 6 years old. I said, would you happen to be related to the Delanceys? He's like, she said, yes, actually my father built this house. His name is Arthur Delancey. And I was like, oh God. I'm like, did he die here? I don't know, it just came out of me, and it felt really rude after the fact that I said it, but not when I said it. She said, yeah, he did. That's why we moved away, is because when my father died getting wood in the winter time in the wood shaft, I was just thinking to myself, yeah, my mom had a little breakdown, and she, yeah, we moved. She couldn't live there anymore. I said, whoa, that's really weird. And she's like, I remember, my room and everything, and the wallpaper, and the little chalkboard and picnic table. And I said, picnic table? I said, I think you might want to come see this. And this little old lady came with me, and I helped her down the stairs, and I brought her to the wood shop because that's where I put them. And it was the chalkboard and the picnic table. And she goes, she said, that's them. Those are mine. And I was like, you can have them. And I brought them up to her car, and I took them apart and put them in her trunk in her car, and she took off. So yeah, I confirmed that was, yeah, my room's connected to a guy's deathbed. So it was the middle of the winter. The middle of the winter in the Northwest Territories. Very, very cold. Very frozen. Everything is just stopped. Dark nighttime. Dark all the time. I was going to bed, and it was really cold in the house. But the thing is, it was cold in my bedroom, and it's warmer upstairs because the thermostat's upstairs, and the heat rises. But down where I am, it doesn't turn on if it's really cold. So, but it was extra cold, and it should have turned on by now. And when the furnace in my bedroom turns on, it doesn't blow into my bedroom, so I have to take off the cover and put it up against the larger furnace. And you can't see anything because the pilot light's hidden. But when it lights up, you get this whole bunch of little flames, and it just lights up my whole room, and you get the heat. I turn off the light, and the furnace still wasn't on. And so I throw all the blankets on me. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, it's pretty cold. But I'm I feel like I'm starting to fall asleep. And you ever feel that feeling where you have a blanket and a cat jumps on you, and it's got that soft padding feeling? Well, I felt that on my feet. And I froze. Because I don't have a cat. So what I did is I became a small child, and I pulled the blankets over my head, and I held tight, and I tucked the blanket everywhere around my body, and this feeling went up onto my shins, and then up onto my knees, and then up onto my thighs. But it wasn't just my thighs, it was still on my knees and my shins and my feet, and then it crawled up on my hips, which by this time it felt like someone was crawling on me, and I felt like it was a woman because I could feel her body parts on me, and she was crawling onto my stomach and onto my chest, and she just stopped, and I was just frozen. What was I to do? My mind was racing and racing and racing, and all I could think is, Mum. I need Mum. I need to run and scream and yell and go to Mum and turn on every light in the house, and I couldn't grasp onto my thoughts in my head. They were just going so fast, racing, which my body, in comparison, was so frozen still, tense, terrified of whatever was on top of me, and there was a feeling of knowing that there was something not right about not just the fact that there's something unknown on me, but there was something wrong, there was something bad on me, something terrifying. I feel it still. As I was laying there freaking out, thinking of what to do. I gotta scream, I gotta run, I gotta go see Mom, I gotta do something, I gotta run, and I'm gonna scream, and all these thoughts, and I can't breathe now. I don't know how long I've been laying here, and I couldn't breathe because is running out of oxygen. All I can think of is I gotta breathe. So what I did is I took forever to turn my head to the side, and so slowly, and all I did was bring my hand, my face, and just bring the blankets around my lips. That cold, refreshing air. It was such a relief, but just enough for me to forget only for a moment. And then the furnace must have turned on because I could feel the warm air on my lips. But then it started pulsating like a breath. So I pulled the blanket back under my head in an awkward position, and I was so tense that I couldn't move, my mind was still racing millions of miles a minute, and I couldn't think of whether or not I didn't know if I was there for hours or minutes or seconds or if it was daytime. I didn't know. I didn't want to look. I couldn't tell. And I've got to do something. I got to think. I got to do this again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run, and I'm going to jump, and I'm going to throw, and I'm going to scream, and I'm going to go to Mum, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there driving my old truck, and I'm in the middle of the highway, in the middle of nowhere, and it's just darkness, and all I can see is just in front of me. I can't see anything. There's no lights, no nothing, and except for in front of me, I can see the road, the ditch, the trees, and I know where I'm going. I'm going home, and I don't work in my town, but I don't work that far away, and I can feel the vinyl seat below me, and it's kind of chilly, but the heater half works, and the little radio, the orange light glows, but the music doesn't work. So all I can hear is my own thoughts in the truck, and I can feel the flannel and that greasy, oily smell. And I'm driving along, and I'm kind of feeling tired, and all of a sudden I can hear a faint noise behind me, and it sounded like a horse on the highway. But it didn't have that same rhythm. It was more like but it was running. Something was behind me, running on the highway really fast with hooves of a horse, and I can hear it, and it's coming, and it's getting closer and louder, and I'm starting to freak out, and I'm starting to speed up a little, and I'm leaning forward, and I keep looking back. There's nothing there. There's nothing behind me. I can't see anything, and all of a sudden, it's getting closer and closer. But I can feel it now. I can feel there's something coming closer behind me, and it's almost there. And all of a sudden, I look over, and it was as if the moon had just come out from behind the clouds. It just lit up the entire sky, and that all didn't matter. What mattered was what was next to me, running beside me at impossible speed, staring directly ahead, was a woman with dark, curly, greasy hair and gray, wrinkly face, black eyes, and hairy chest and gray skin. And once you got to her waist, it was just thick, dark black hair, and she had hooves, and she was running impossibly fast next to me. And at this time, all I did was I was leaning forward, and I didn't want the back of my neck to exist. My lip was touching the steering wheel. I was stepping on the gas as hard as I could. I just forced myself to look up just long enough where I didn't have to feel her next to me, but I could just feel it. And all of a sudden, I couldn't help myself but just look over and look over and look over, and she was just staring ahead, running as fast as I was going, and I can hear the engine roaring as loud as it would go. And I looked, and she just slowly turned her head towards me, and her black eyes glimmered as she reached her arm out and pointed ahead. And all I could do was look, and I'm roaring, and I'm flying, and I'm coming down, and I'm walking with my friend down the street, and it's all darkness around us, and all you can see is the street light. Tiny little gas station with just the front of it illuminated from the light from inside the store. And we're talking and we're laughing. And my friend there, he got hit by a moving van, and he was driving his motorcycle, and he hops when he walks, and so we're just laughing, and we're talking about anything. I don't really understand what we're saying, but I know we're laughing and kind of having a good time. And he points and he goes, "Look!" And we're just getting up to close enough to the gas station where we can see there's a shadow of a person just huddled up against the gas station wall, just out of the light. And I look, and he looks, and he goes, "Hey buddy, you okay?" And all of a sudden it jumps up, and all you can hear is a clop on the cement. And we start chasing it. I don't know why, but we started chasing it. I ran behind the gas station, and we're both running around, and all we can hear was just around the corner, and we kept chasing it. And then he says, "Stop." He says, "You go one way, I go the other way." And we both split up, and we're both running and chasing after the same sound. And all of a sudden I'm standing there in the middle of the highway, looking at a house, small house with a screen door, and a woman sitting on her porch, just on the steps, and it's lightly raining, and there's this little girl jumping in the puddles, and she has these little yellow slicker with a little yellow rain hat, little yellow rain boots, and she's jumping and laughing in the water, and there's still color, but everything was a bit gray. And I couldn't move or say or do anything, and it was like I wasn't there and I didn't exist to them, but I was just watching them. And she's just laughing, and the mother's laughing too, and she's smiling and clapping, and the little girl's having such a great time. And all of a sudden you can hear this phone ringing in the back, in the house. And she says, "1 second, Mommy will be right back." And she goes and opens the screen door and closes it. And all of a sudden it was instantly pouring. As more rain than I'd ever seen pour down in my entire life. And it was just pouring hard. And it got darker. And this little girl was having a blast. These puddles were so big, and she was jumping in them and having such a great time, and this shrill little laugh was coming out of her, and all I could do is watch, and all of a sudden she jumps into this large puddle, and it comes up to her waist, and she jerks. And she jerks again, and then she jerks, and all I can see is her falling slowly backwards, and just as her little hat disappears under the water, the door opens, and her mom comes running out, and she starts screaming, "Kaylee, Kaylee," looking around frantically, and all of a sudden I'm laying there in my bed, petrified, fear-stricken, and I couldn't think, I couldn't do anything, I was just solid still, and there was something on top of me, and I knew that there was something there, and I had to do something about it. So I had to build this courage, build this something inside of me that was stronger than me, something that I had to be something stronger. And I knew what I was going to do. I was going to grab my blankets and push with all my might, as hard as I could, and run as fast as I could down the hallway, up the stairs, around the stairs, and then into my mom's bedroom, turn on all the lights I can on the way, and I just slammed the door behind me, and I went, Mom, 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 Mom. And finally, after, I don't know if it was minutes or hours or days, in my head, I finally built enough courage, and I grabbed the blanket, and I pushed as hard as I could, and pushed, and it was like everything was in slow motion. The blanket slowly fell, and just at that moment, the furnace turned on, and it roared, and there was a flickery display of lights, and there was just a silhouette. As the blanket dropped, I could see the silhouette of a woman, and she had the hairy, greasy face and everything, and she just leaned back slowly like this, and she hissed at me, and all of a sudden I woke up and it was daytime. I hurriedly went upstairs, and I told my mom, I told my family, and they have believed me because of what had happened to all of us. Within 2 weeks, I looked and looked and looked. It wasn't until I found a trade fair. But I joined the military. I went to basic training. I moved here. And I've been here happy. Still freaked out that there's something always behind me. There's something always around the corner. The worst is going upstairs. You open the door to go into the stairwell. And right behind you, there's, just as the door is closing, there's always something that just snuck in with you. And just as you're leaving, there's always something that just snuck out with you too. And that's my story.